And I take it personally for the other candidates too, because I think it's rude to say that people don't have value. Maybe they don't have the organization because they don't have insiders running their team. They're not being selected to run. They don't have people, again, using the party's resources to make someone seem more organized.
Chad Wilson, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. You are a Green Party contender, a candidate for President of the United States. So my first question would be, just because I know that you've been pretty vocal about what's happening in the Green Party and some of the allegations of rigging and whatnot that's happening. I know that you entered a little later in the race. Why are you running? Is it to help point out that corruption and rigging, or is it actually to win the party's nomination?
Well, I mean, I'm running to win the nomination. I'm running for president. It's wasn't something that I really understood the depth of the corruption and everything that's going on in the party till I actually got in the race. I thought it was just some toxic people here and there because it's supposed to be decentralized. I didn't realize it was a group of insiders working together to, prop up their own candidate, same DNC behavior, that kind of thing. So, I believe in the four pillars, the values, and I didn't see anyone that I thought was saying the things that needed to be said, which basically the internet, this is our biggest tool. It's the first time in history that we've been able to communicate at such a mass level. So I wanted to bring my understanding of social media and of art and entertainment to so we can set up a cultural coup for a political coup, which is 33 Strategies of War. Big Robert Greene fan.
So when did you first decide to get involved with the Green Party? Could you just maybe speak a little bit about what your background is and how you started working with the party originally, and then what caused you to decide to run for president?
Sure. I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. It was the natural choice at that point. And afterwards, of course, after the 2016 convention for the Democrats, I was disenfranchised completely with Bernie Sanders. I was done with him. If he can't stand up to the DNC, then, or the Clintons, then, that's his threshold. He's not going to be able to do what needs to be done. So I voted Green Party, and it wasn't till 2018 that I really got involved in a more in-depth way, because we did these online group discussions across the country with different Greens and different people, going through all this information, really engaged in this progressive circuit. And that's when they brought the attention, a couple of the Greens, that Jesse Ventura was talking about a possible run with the Green Party.
So will you ever run for president? Will you seek the Green Party nomination?
I don't know. You'll find out in the spring.
Okay.
Why would I do it now? Wait till the Pikers are gone.
Okay. Well, Governor,
it's all about tactics, man. It's tactics. That's how you win. It ain't time now. It's too early.
I sincerely hope that you do run for president this year. And
Yeah.
I think it would be awesome if you did.
Well, let me just leave you with this. What do you think about a ticket? Imagine this ticket. Governor Jesse Ventura and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
That sounds great. I would love to see that.
He quits the Democratic Party and joins me with the Greens.
So we started doing this thing called a Ventura-thon, and we started talking about the positives and negatives of having a Jesse Ventura run, and it got me engaged in a different way. Started, having me look at the whole process, the things that the Green Party needed, because I believed in the values. It just wasn't a real opportunity. Tennessee's not really that active to where, that was where my engagement was. It was more just discussion and dialogue with people, in across the country. So I got engaged that way, and then I started seeing the pushback and the attitude from some of these internal people, which the screenshot obviously of Andrea when James Young had sent out this message trying to get people excited about a possible Jesse Ventura run. That's when she was discussing about loading up the PCSC with Brendan Phillips, which he's the ballot access coordinator, and he's on Hawkins' campaign, and he he was with his state too. They prevented David Rold from speaking. There was 10 people at a statewide convention or conference or whatnot, and somebody had to get change their registration on their phone. It was a husband changed the registration in order to make a motion for David to be able to speak in front of 10 people. So that's the kind of attitude and oh, it's all about the rules, and it's not about what's right, it's about the rules. So
go ahead. Let's take a step back. So what made you want Jesse Ventura to run for the Green Party's nomination in 2020?
Well, it wasn't that I necessarily wanted Jesse Ventura to run, as it was the people that I was dealing with had more knowledge of Jesse, so they were bringing Jesse to my attention because I didn't really know a lot about his political side. And it was something, as I got engaged and I started looking at all these different points and policy things and learning about the man's character, I started to say, okay, well, this is a great fit for the Green Party, and it would be positive to have some sort of attention to bring on the Green Party's primary, because the primary is the opportunity for people to get engaged and not feel the need to have to vote. The pressure's not on, which is another thing that you see in this race, is that they've promoted the primary none. There's the 49 people voted in Colorado and 10,000 are registered or something like that. 49 people. So I mean, they're filing things right now that it just so. I like his positions on a lot of things, but again, he's been talking about running for a long time and still hasn't thrown his hat in the ring. So with all that talk about it and going into understanding the branding, the marketing, the energy, because the idea is to break the two-party system at this point, because we know that they have all these mechanisms in place in order to prevent a third-party candidate or a populist candidate from getting in, but we can still move the conversation, move the Overton window to have the right discussions, which obviously election integrity, a lot of issues. So I got on board for that, and then just again seeing how the other candidates were being treated, because I was following the primary. I was like, okay, well, I've already gone over all the different things that I felt like the Green Party needed. I'll go in and see if I can, help bring my expertise. And my focus was to identify and remove the toxic behavior, organize the resources, and then focus on a social media blast, really organize the resources that way, because that's our real connection, and we're just not utilizing it properly.
So I definitely want to talk about your campaign and everything that's happening in the Green Party and the pushback that you've received. But just to stay on the Jesse Ventura topic for a second, because I've had him on my show. He hinted at that he might run. He said that it was too early. He even talked about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being his running mate. But as you mentioned, he's hinted at running several times in the past. Do you think that there's any chance that he may step in last minute and run for the Green Party nomination?
I have no idea. I mean, he's been saying that he's going to run for a long time. I think if he's going to, then this would be the opportunity to do it. Everything's at stake, and it's prime for someone to come in and a real third populist candidate to come in and expose the pony show. Now, as far as I wouldn't say a Kennedy. For me, I'm kind of tired of all the names and reusing this political thing. I'm over that. I think at this point there should be some families that are banned from participating in in elections in public office for what their family have done. I mean, it's ridiculous how long some of these families have been in power in places. Family, father to daughter to kind of thing.
So again, what made you specifically want to jump in and run, as opposed to maybe being a vocal advocate for Jesse Ventura, or maybe supporting someone else who was already in the race, like Ian Schlachman, who was also vocal about a lot of this alleged rigging that was happening?
Well, the one thing that you always get when you try to tell people what's going on, or explain to people, well, why don't you run? Why don't you do it? Why don't, and I got to the point where I'm tired of trying to explain to people from a certain position. Running for president gives me a platform that I didn't have before, and makes me think in a different way that I haven't had to think. So the power of the pulpit, which is absolutely true, they can't deny what someone has to say. So I know that if you are going to fix these internal issues, you have to do it from a cultural standpoint where people realize everything that's going on. If I was running for mayor, or something super small somewhere, then they're not going to pay attention to me. Oh, blah, 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 So I knew that this is the best way to help push that third party thing along. Because, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Dore. I think, those guys, that whole crew, are such a huge part in the front lines of what's going on, of real change, because of the way that they deliver the information and what they're providing, their analysis of everything. So, I had to do my part where, if people aren't calling out the election integrity, calling out the BS, the internal issues, because it's the same thing that's happening in your schools, your organizations, obviously politics, churches, everywhere. People feel entitled to these positions. They feel like they own things. People dismiss behavior because they know that person. They may know that person's heart, but they don't actually follow through with the values sometimes. It's in this case, I'm seeing too much of dismissal. I mean, even I saw Jill Stein dismissed what Andrea was doing, rather than being like, okay, yeah, it was a real issue and things are still happening. It was just more like, oh, well, people wear dual hats. It's a small party. Well, there's a reason why there's a small party, is because insiders are gatekeeping it from growing. I mean, you have these same people that are working on all these different campaigns. The only people that are seeing being promoted from our GP media is people that are actually connected to Jill Stein and to people that are on our media committee that run our website. And Lisa Savage, she's started off as a Green candidate and ended up switching to independent after, and of course she's still being promoted. And Jill Stein's on her team, all these different people are on their team, and we never get anywhere forward as a party because we're never actually trying to run people on our team, under our banner. If you don't run somebody under our flag, we're never going to get anybody, elected. So just go ahead.
So when Ian was on my show recently, the way that he sort of characterized the issue with the race for the Green Party presidential nomination is that there's essentially these two factions behind the scenes. There's a faction of Margaret Flowers, Kevin Zeese, and Andrea Merida on one side, and on the other side, Jill Stein and another former nominee, David Cobb. And the way that Ian really tells the story is that the Kevin Zeese, Margaret Flowers, Andrea Merida faction really were pushing for Howie Hawkins to be the nominee. I'm just wondering if you would characterize the issue in the same fashion, where there's these two factions sort of infighting, pushing for Howie Hawkins, bending the rules where they're writing rules about signature requirements and financial requirements. That was one thing that Ian alleged that I know some other people in the Green Party pushed back about, saying that they didn't actually write those rules, but that was something that he alleged.
And these rules were written clear as day by Andrea, so by Miss Merida. So I think it's really important to understand.
Just to stop there, because that's a pretty big accusation you're making. How could you prove that Andrea wrote these rules?
Well, I could tell you that they came from the Howie Hawkins team. They came from her email. Dario and I were each asked to sign on to this because we were two of the earliest candidates. Dario wrote back to her saying, what is this? Are you asking this on behalf of yourself? Because at the time, she was also a Green Party co-chair. She was one of the national co-chairs that we have. The Green Party has, I think, like 5 co-chairs, and then a treasury, and then a secretary.
So she was one of these 5 co-chairs, but also serving in the Howie Hawkins campaign.
Yes, at the exact same time. So was Margaret Flowers. Kevin Zeese was also in the communications committee, the national one that controls what the Green Party says online and on Twitter. And they've all refused to recuse themselves, all for kind of different reasons.
Would you echo Ian's sentiments, or are there other things happening? Is it sort of a wider issue that you're complaining about?
Well, I mean, I think it's all kind of one and the same. I don't think I think it's more like the establishment, two-party politics. They're both know the hustle, because that's what it's about. It's about the hustle. He's right about, being able to run the money through their campaign, because that's why they control the GP US, because we're a federation. All these state parties join at the federation, but controlling the GP US media is the face of the party. It's the narrative of the party, because that's when people are more engaged in politics when it comes to the presidential race. That's why they're being so protective over it, and that's where we're at. So I don't think it's as much as, I mean, there may be two factions trying to kind of battle it out, but I think that's more political theater than anything, because you look at the people that are connected. So Jill Stein's got 600,000 followers on her Facebook. So what's been going on is that David Cobb and Michael O'Neill, which is our media director, and also on Hawkins' payroll, have been running the Greenway Forward on Jill Stein's for the last few years for this thing that they do. Well, they've been sharing that content on the GP media, which basically qualifies it and legitimizes everything that they're doing. So this is how it works. It's you go in, you find an issue to champion, and then you have your organization that you basically champion this whole time. And Jill Stein's is the ranked choice voting. You have different people doing different things, but David Schwab, he got paid thousands of dollars in 2019. Jill Stein's for president campaign has raised $150,000 in 2019, even though she's not running. So he made that. He's also on Lisa Savage's payroll.
If you wouldn't mind just explaining too, when you say that, where are you getting that information from?
The FSC website. You can search Jill Stein for president, and you could see that in 2019 that there was $150,000 raised, and a lot of that was paid to David Schwab, and I believe, David Doonan is on Lisa Savage's payroll, as well as Schwab, I believe, and of course Doonan works for the media and runs the website, so that's where you see all this Lisa Savage stuff being shared, and it's nothing against her, because I don't know her personally, but the point is that if we're not promoting our own candidates, we're only promoting outside candidates. And why are we only promoting outside candidates that are connected to this group? So that's my point there, is that because Michael O'Neill has been working with Howie Hawkins since 2010, since he originally ran on the Green New Deal, and you see him talking about this a lot. So Michael O'Neill kind of connects everything. So does, Cobb, working. They did that eco-socialism event back in September, and it's kind of an example of how it works, right? So Howie Hawkins is doing a eco-socialist Green New Deal. That's his branding. They're trying to take that Green New Deal and market it and just add another name to it and update it. Well, I guess the party's been known as an eco-socialist party now, so they wanted to say for Greens, by Greens, and then all these co-chairs, national co-chairs, committee members were promoting this. Dario Hunter and actually Howie had a speaking thing on there. They, again, promoted it on outside. It's an outside, an independent, non-sanctioned event. Anita Rios even said that in her interview at the very end when asked if the presidential candidates were going to be there. So anyways, so they had this eco-socialism event on the back of the climate strike march, which in Chicago, which we knew that was going to be big. So this is how they do it. They use the party, because that was promoted and shared on the party's website, on the party's GP media page. And of course it was being streamed, from Jill Stein's thing. And it all goes through their own ecosocialist.org or whatnot. So it's just an example. So you had all these these co-chairs and committee members that are again, we're losing ballot access. We're losing members, and they're using the resources again for their outside organizations. So again, I don't think it's something that's. I think it's all connected. I think they're just trying, just like the Democrats and Republicans, they're just trying to control the narrative, and you control the narrative by kind of getting in the hot seat, and that's more or less what they're kind of doing, and it's just very disheartening to see so many people okay with it, because I mean Jill Stein knows everything that's going on. So does Ajamu. All these people have been CC'd, once. See, this is what thing that wasn't talked about with the PCSC. Well, actually, when you talked with Ian, he said that it was a PCSC meeting. It wasn't. It was a meeting with the Green Rainbow Massachusetts Party, which John Andrews is the head of the PCSC, the co-chair, and he's also on the presidential campaign support on for Massachusetts. So this meeting, we brought it up. So me, Sednam, and David, because that's David's home state, he was kept off the ballot. He's been in the party 15 years and they kept him off the ballot. So we confronted everything that was going on. And of course, John Andrews lied about trying to take us off the website. He said nobody's going to take us off the website. Of course, we got the email straight from the PCSC. Of course, he said that how he was not in violation of any rule. There's no rule that says that, and of course, we have that rule. He also acknowledges that from week to week that the race, gets fired up. Things go back and forth. That's politics, and he obviously deliberately drug his feet on adding the names for the signatures. Updating that. It's a Google Doc. It automatically updates it.
If we could just explain this, because for folks maybe who missed the discussion with Ian. So essentially what happened was, at some point during the race, there was a suggestion to have standards for who was considered an official candidate and who was an unofficial Green Party presidential candidate.
And the informational packet that I got said the purpose of official recognition is for extra resources from the party. So you can win the nomination and not have official recognition. So I assumed that by taking my time to be at debates and forums and conventions, that I would have the opportunity to get signatures. And you're not even allowed to get hand signatures. You have to go to this Google document that's controlled by John Andrews, which is the guy that investigated himself and said, no, we didn't act irregularly. And there's the other thing too, is if you go sign your name there, you're putting a target on your back. And I've got screenshots of the co-chair in Ohio. Somebody posted a thing. I'm voting for Chad Wilson. If anybody's interested, whatnot. Just the nastiness that you see how they treat you just by interviewing it. So the way that they framed it as active candidate, or they unofficial or other candidates, rather than saying the active candidates.
When they suggested that there be these two different tiers, when they suggested that we need to have candidates who are able to get these signatures and who are able to meet these financial requirements, did they explain why the Green Party needs official and unofficial candidates?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't. Yeah, my interaction was very brief, and it was with John Andrews, because I came in later, and it took him a minute to even put me on the website, to update my So my most of the things that I've learned, a lot of it has been through the candidates, because John obviously really doesn't like me because I've exposed him, with this footage and just been passing it around, and they see, he's a liar. And it's clear that they're ignoring the affiliation rule, which there's the whole point is what they're doing is using that official recognition to prevent candidates from just speaking in front of the party. And then they say, well, go get signatures. What I have to go and fight against your narrative and play, kiss ass to a stuffed shirt type attitude. So that's where I realized, for me, my best option was to continue doing what I'm doing, is take a survey of the land and really figure out who's who and what's going on. And the best way to do that is to dumb down what I'm capable of doing. And so that's been my focus. Just
so you're not trying you're not trying to get signatures. You're not trying to reach those financial requirements to become a quote unquote official candidate.
Well, it's not that I'm not trying to reach to get those signatures. It's just that I'm not purposely trying to do that to get their approval. If we don't have a wave of people come in, if they don't think the Green Party is viable, we've lost anyways, and I've failed anyways. My whole point was to show what can be done without spending a dime. I thought if we're trying to get money out of politics, and I come in and say, look what I'm able to do with spending damn near nothing, and it shows. I mean, Hawkins has been in the game for 50 years, and I can come in and just totally destroy his whole thing. Just it's not that hard to call these people out on it. Just some of the stuff that they're doing is so corny and is the reason why nobody takes us serious. And that's not a way, that's not me trying to insult somebody. It's saying that we have to realize how presentation is. And again, now I do dumb down things in order to you can't take yourself serious in a party that doesn't take themselves serious, and that's the whole key. Is nobody's going to come here. I knew Bernie was going to get cheated. I knew the same thing was going to happen, and either the party was going to be ready and see that somebody's been actively trying to make it open for people. Because I mean, I'm being censored from even sharing anything on the discussion page. So what I'm going to go and single person by person try to get them to sign up to this Google Doc. You know, I either I bring in a wave of people, either I do what I say that I can do, or I don't. You know, I think that's the proof is in the pudding of what can be done. And at the end of the day, it's the nomination. The party has the resources to make waves. We're just not utilizing it because the people that are in control of it are incrementalists, and they're really kind of moderates. And they don't want to push the envelope because they want to keep their you know, there's certain little train of what it is. You know, we have to be radical. We have to be everything that these other parties aren't. And that I mean, obviously I don't agree with, you know, Jill Stein's whatever, you know, her list of what people need. You know, you don't have to have a staff of people to add value to a race. You know, you don't have to have insiders organize your whole campaign and then select you. So that's the other thing. Chris Blankenhorn, he spoke at a Minnesota thing, I believe, about a group of people got together. They put together a 2020 plan, but they didn't have a candidate. And then they thought Howie Hawkins was best fit for that candidate, or to fulfill that plan. So it's clear that they had this planned out, and they've used their positions in order to, you know, write the narrative. I mean, you saw Kevin Zeese, you know, how he treated Ian and the bullying. It's a lot of bullying. You know, run green until you want to run president, and then it's like, you know, screw you. It's not. You know, it's discouraging, but at the same time, it's an opportunity, because if we can't do it in a smaller party, if we can't get rid of the corruption, if we can't even identify the behavior and how it operates and how people next to us, how we allow them to go further with behavior because we're close to them, because we're, you know, maybe we don't see things from a clear perspective, then we're not going to get anywhere. And from me coming in newer, I have more of a macro and outside looking in. I can see all the, you know, the attitude problems, because that's a big part. You don't have to get ballot access or go get signatures. If people are in the party, if people want to be in the party, they're going to sign. They're automatically sign. You know, they're going to automatically be engaged. But we're not adding value to people's lives. We're wanting them to make calls to baby boomers. I mean, really, it's.
So if you could be, you know, if all of these obstacles that you're facing were kind of put out of the way, and you were sort of put in charge of the Green Party, what would you do fundamentally to change how the party operates, or you know, just maybe in terms of the presidential nomination itself, some of these issues that you brought up, but also just the overall strategy of the party? What is really wrong with the party that you would like to fix?
Well, first of all, it's the look, the feel of the party when you go to the website or when you engage in the discussion, or it seems very juvenile. And I'm not saying I'm the best at what I do, but the point is that you find the people that can do these specific things when it comes to designing, art direction. That's a big thing. Unification is going to come, first of all, is if we have four pillars and all the four pillars don't match, we're not unified. It needs to be a unified four pillars. Like it doesn't need to change from state to state. Now I know that states are decentralized, but there still has to be some form of unity on the national level if we're going to move as a unit on the national level. I think that there needs to be a real system that allows people to be engaged. So even if it's a platform, that's something that I'm working on myself, and I'm Green Party Nation is what I'm calling it. So the idea is to have a platform, have a space to organize all these resources. So you should be able to sign in and put all your information in and know everybody that's running in your district, know information. You know, we're supposed to do a crowdsource share of this so we can really move as a unit, because we have the resources, the internet, and we have each other. That's a big part of it. We're not using these pieces together to be as efficient, if that makes sense. And then we have to have some sort of real thing in place for people to speak out against things that are going on in the party, because now they'll censor you, and they'll say you're trying to destroy the party when you're just trying to bring awareness to, hey, this is the DNC right here. It's no different. People aren't going to like that. And what do you think people are going to feel when they get here?
Well, I've certainly faced that myself in just interviewing Howie and Ian. A lot of people have accused me of trying to hurt the party when that's really not my objective. I'm just trying to cover what's happening and what Howie Hawkins has said. But apparently, that can be perceived as trying to hurt the party. And I think to some degree too, when you're running in the presidential race, you're pointing to all of these different folks who are very influential, and not even in just one faction as Ian might be, but saying Jill Stein and David Cobb are also to blame. Do you see where maybe that may come across to some people, especially folks who have no familiarity with the Green Party, who any of these people are? They just know Bernie Sanders lost, I want to vote for a Green Party person. Do you see where maybe from the outside in, it may seem as though you're just trying to cause trouble?
Of course. But that's the whole point, is like, why isn't Jill Stein speaking up on this? Like, why is this happening? Why are the only people that are being shared on our GP media are people that are connected to her? Like, these are valid questions to ask. Why did they ask her to do the State of the Union response when there's 7 candidates? Why is she dismissing the role of Andrea when all this stuff's going on? Why is she going around campaigning to people in Massachusetts to keep people off the ballots when she says she's for more voices and people to be engaged? So all these little things don't match up with what her persona is. And again, I voted for her, and it wasn't till this whole race that I was like, okay, well, these people are complicit in it. How are you okay with election integrity? I mean, from the very beginning, that should have been something like a no-no, but instead, when people try to dismiss it and cover under the rug, it just makes it worse. So to me, that's telling, a lot more telling. And I mean, why? Why? I mean, it doesn't make sense that she's okay with that stuff. But again, I understand what you're saying though. Is when you're calling out the Green Party darling, it's going to ruffle some feathers, and it's going to make people think that you don't have a legitimate bone to pick. But the point is they're using her Facebook page, and they're running these things off of her page. Jill Stein for president made $150,000 in 2019. She's not running. She's campaigning for Lisa Savage, a non-green candidate. She's on that whole team that they've promoted all this stuff. They switched it. To independent right before, and then now they're still promoting it. So it's like, are we? If we're going to be honest about what's really preventing us from growth, then we have to be honest that our heroes aren't our heroes. And I'm not, I don't know all the things about Jill Stein, but she's not hurting for money. Not that means anything, because money's not a big deal. In the sense of, you don't want to demonize money. It's when money has you, when you're obsessed with capitalizing, predatory capitalizing on people. But she's not hurting, and she's not saying anything about it. And to me, if you're a leader and you really care about the party, and integrity issues, internal issues are the first thing. We should be transparent. Where's she been for the last 4 years? Why has she not been promoting green? The only thing that her and Ajamu both talk about is the DNC over and over and over and over. But they're not really like, hey, come to the Green Party. Let's do this event. Let's do this. Let's it's all softball, real milk toast kind of thing. And I hate to say that, because I voted for her and I stumped for her, and I had a hard time explaining to people then about why they should vote for her. And I'm seeing a little bit more of their complaint of her before, now that I'm seeing, it's politics stuff. Like, I don't understand why it's okay. I don't understand why it's okay to her that Andrea and all these people that she's connected to can rig it. I don't understand why Michael O'Neill and David Cobb can grow her page, share that content, and keep that little thing. Why she's fighting, why she's called, and that's what Ian said, or somebody was saying that they called Colorado and was trying to, like, that to me is more authoritarian. It was really her campaigning to keep people off the Massachusetts ballot, especially when David Rhodes been there for 15 years, and he had every right to be on that ballot. And John Andrews is a liar. There's a few more people on there too. His Matty Boy, his little kid. They're just liars, and they manipulate the narrative in order to get the outcome that they want, because that's a big deal. When you say that the PCSC is recommending someone, is you're saying that based upon whatever their voting mechanism, if it's whatever, there's 30 people or something like that. So if it's a majority, you're saying a majority of 30 people are deciding which candidates are being taken seriously because of this whole thing, which again, Hawkins doesn't even have the official recognition by the rules, which is committing election fraud, because these state parties are preventing candidates from being on the ballot because of this official recognition. And by doing so, they're manipulating and rigging the ballot. That's election fraud. So, I mean, there's going to be some legal recourse in a lot of this stuff. So the candidates have been talking, and what they're doing and what Andrea has been doing in Colorado is just ugly. So, I mean, again, there's the things like, why are people allowing that kind of behavior? Why isn't that a bigger deal, to Jill Stein, to Ajamu? Ajamu is supporting Howie. Why isn't Dario worried about it? Dario only speaks up when it's about him, when the issue affects him, about the whole North Carolina. And he just now spoke on it when he was on an interview with Nico House. That's the first time. Well, I take that back. He did it in a chat when we were talking about Ohio going there for the debate, because we talked about going and candidates giving us time for like a month and a half, 2 months before it even happened.
So could you talk a little bit about Ohio, and could you talk about maybe just some of the other obstacles that you faced and kind of dirty tricks that you've come up against?
So Ohio kind of really started originally back in September. They had the Black Caucus debate in Muncie, Indiana, and I had called out, I don't think I said her name, Anita Rios, but that's when they were doing that eco-socialism event. So I'd called it out. In fact, I had gotten word about the affiliation rule. I hadn't put two and two together, and I've been getting a lot more private messages of people that have left the Green Party, or disenfranchised people, or people that don't want me to say their name, and that's how my attention was brought to the affiliation role. So that's the first time anybody in this whole thing has said anything about it publicly about it was then. So I brought it up then, and brought up the whole eco-socialism thing about them using the resources, and so from since then it's been kind of you know, they've been working to minimize what the other other candidates, the value, I guess. But so Ohio came around, and so that's where Dario was first, and now he's moved to California. But we got the confirmation about a debate through this chat, and they added me in there, and they were only going to include the recognized candidates or those that were on the California ballot. I'm like, okay, well, why, what does that make sense? So through this whole, chain of messaging, I mean, I clearly, the first time they tried to say that only these people were invited, I said, I'm going to be there with bells on. I'm going to be there. So just to let you know, and it was clear that Sednam and David and actually Dennis were going to split up their time in order to allow myself and Susan to speak. So time had got closer and closer, and time came, and we got there, and they were trying to prevent me and Susan. Really, it was really about me to even go and sit on the little debate stage or whatever. And then that's when Sednam kind of jumped up and kind of got in her way, because what's her name was, I wouldn't say charging, but she was definitely coming to try to get in my way. That's Anita Rios. So what you could see in the videos, the footage that I've posted on Green Party Nation, it shows a debacle of after we sat down, and Anita not wanting the other candidates to speak, myself and Susan, and eventually Joseph, the guy that was the moderator, kind of quieted everything down, and we started to go and start talking, and everybody introduced. But when it got to me, she at the very back of the room started yelling, disruption, it goes both ways, blah blah, which was not how I disrupted. I came in to speak on my turn, that I was given the opportunity to speak with other people's time. So it's a different thing. So of course they blew it out of proportion, and of course there was another guy that was even talking about calling the cops. And actually, the cops ended up getting called, but they didn't even have to come in by the time they got to the place that everything had already settled down. So again, they try to change this narrative and say, oh, well, we voted on it, so you can't go. I'm like, okay, well, so 5 of you people of insiders, control the narrative, you're co-chairs, and you get to pick and choose who gets on the debate or even on the ballot. So I ended up getting 2.2% of the vote that day. Somebody had to write me in Ohio, because my name wasn't listed. They actually had to write me in. So it just goes to show that if I'm there speaking and giving my input and my viewpoint, that I'm capable of getting votes. But there's just not an environment for me to go and get signatures and stuff like that. I think it's ridiculous. Just to go back to that, you can get signatures in a day. If you have the opportunity to have a bunch of people in one room. I didn't want to play patty cake politics. I mean, I take this seriously, even if I don't take their little litmus test seriously, because it's a popularity contest with that. So anyways, the whole thing with Ohio was just a big ordeal, because nobody wants to be checked and called out for being corrupt. Hawkins has said nothing about the exclusion about anybody. Even Dario, he said he'll pass. didn't even say anything about it when Sednam called him out. And it's this thing. Sednam had the money. She's had the signatures for a long time, but she was trying to wait for everybody else to get their recognition. You know, 'cause she actually likes working with people, and she's done a lot of engagement on that side of things, as far as, you know, doing a lot of in an organized way, I guess. Some of the things that we've done together. So I mean, the candidates we drove up there. The Sednam, Susan, and David all came into Nashville. We went to the Tennessee potluck. We watched a video and ate and met with the Tennessee Greens, and then got in the car at like 10 o'clock at night. Drove straight to Ohio. We got a room for a couple hours, and then went straight to this debate. And you know, it's just like we put our time in, our effort, spend money, energy, and they treat you with disrespect. But again, it's you know, I'm the bad guy for having to call out these things that nobody wants to deal with. And then, you know, I mean, it sets me up with a certain type of reputation, which I'm fine, because I knew that I wanted people to have a bad taste of me because of my approach. But then once people get to know me, they understand, you know, I mean, I am a genuine dude. I really do have an expertise. I really do want to help. I do really do believe in the values. It's just, you know, you don't know what people are able to offer to the party or to give to the party if you're constantly gatekeeping those people of the opportunity to speak. You know, let a candidate fall on their face. I mean, you know, and then that's something to even go back to what Jill Stein had said. You know, because what she said on your interview was so telling. When you called her out too, and I say called out, when you checked her on were you a member of the party, another party, and she's like, well, no. And that was the whole key, is that rule actually. I know I'm jumping all over the place because there's a lot to cover. That was something that Justin Beth had even acknowledged, that rule. This is the first year that it was in there, and he didn't acknowledge as well that rule, that language, except they changed you said the amounts. Kevin Zeese was on the PCSC at that time, but then he left and he went to the media committee, which is the committee that, you know, that Ian, you know, when Ian called him out when he was sharing things and stuff like that. And then of course he was still on the Hawkins committee too. So that was just a side note. That was a connection there. But I wanted to point out, like, you know, for Jill Stein, and I just say that because she said, I've seen some very unqualified candidates get up and parade as legitimate candidates, and that's a real issue for the party. Which I don't know if you've seen Howie Hawkins' website. I'm sure you have. His campaign, his promo photos. The guy has a crooked tie. A crooked tie. This guy's been running for 50 years. And he doesn't even care enough to straighten his tie for his promo pics on everything. And I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but the point is that when someone wants to try and check someone that says, hey, you're not ready for the prime time, or you're not, and I took it personally, because I am one of the candidates, and I take it personally for the other candidates too, because I think it's rude to say that people don't have value. Maybe they don't have the organization because they don't have insiders running their team. They're not being selected to run. They don't have people, again, using the party's resources to make someone seem more organized. So I just wanted to say that is there's your point, is for her to say that. And to even say that and to have a mullet, you know what I mean, in the interview, it blows my mind. To see Howie crooked tie, you know, blows my mind. Again, it doesn't mean I'm the most sharpest person out there, but if we're being really serious and if we're gonna pick, you know, be real picky about what is real presentation, what is legitimate, we're gonna talk about who can really talk, who can really engage people, who is not just going to talk, you know, these talking points and these. I mean, we all know what we want for the most part. I feel like, we've got the healthcare, we've got to deal with climate change, we have to deal with this corruption, we have to deal with all this stuff. But if we're not actually participating in ending this corruption, ending the censorship, ending the propaganda, we're not going to get anything changed. It's going to be incrementalism. And if we're still too busy arguing over the branding of the Green New Deal, because Colin, the guy Colin, I can't even think of his last name right now, but I mean, he's the one who came up with the slogan, and Howie took the slogan from him, and then AOC took the slogan from the Green Party, or whoever pulled it together. So I mean, we're arguing and focused on these branding things, these things that they're actually using that to ride the tails off and to continue as a fundraising, rather than really going after these people for stealing the thing. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity that even Jill Stein could have shifted. The whole Russiagate thing with Hillary Clinton, that should have been a huge opportunity to get people to the Green Party. But again, I don't know. I think right now we need someone that's not afraid to call these people out, and I feel like I'm the only candidate that's really shown my capabilities without raising a dime. You don't have to give me money. You just your attention.
Well, on that note, I actually do have a thing on my show where patrons are able to submit questions to the guests. I know that we don't have much time left, but I did just want to quickly get to these patron questions that we had.
Sure.
One was from William Pounds. He says, what do you think about Brendan Phillips being on the payroll of the Socialist Party candidate who has pledged to run against the Green Party's nominee? He is Hawkins' ballot access coordinator and on the Green Party's ballot access committee. Party resources are being used to prop up the Socialist Party candidate so that he can be on the ballot in states where Green parties don't have ballot access. If Howie loses the Green nomination, he will still have access to state ballots, having used the Green Party infrastructure.
Absolutely, and the resources. Brendan Phillips is the ballot access coordinator for the GPUS, and he's been working tirelessly on Hawkins' campaign. And when you're focused on an individual campaign, your duties for the party are being taken for granted and being ignored. Michael Trudeau, he's from the North Carolina party, and we know we have issue with that. Of course, Tony Nedge, he's another chair that's openly supporting Hawkins, but they've been using they've been focusing on getting Howie on the independent states and getting his name individually, so as a way to of course add more to the states that the Green Party has. But that's what we've been focused on, doing these individual things rather than focusing all of our attention on the Green Party, getting the Green Party ballot access. It's a free-for-all thing. So I think Brendan, not just Brendan, I think all these different people that have been engaged and involved in the corruption and the backroom deals, the using the party resources to promote your candidate while ignoring your duties and your obligation to being neutral. I think those people should be prevented from holding any green position or running under the green banner, at least for a couple of cycles. I mean, all these co-chairs being able to do what they've been doing is absolutely horrible and terrible for the party.
So last patron question real quick is from Shrek Peters. He asks, would you consider the Green Party the vessel for future progressive reform? If not, why, and what could be that vessel?
Yes. I mean, I believe because of the four pillars. I believe because of, the values. I mean, I believe the Green Party can be that. It's in the name. I mean, it's the idea, the marketing, the packaging is there as far as what it means. Again, it's just these leadership. It's a small group of people that have organized to run these committees and get their people in place in order to, you know, have the influence over the direction of the party and where those resources are being used and wasted. So I think that the Green Party has the most opportunity to do so. It's up to people how engaged that they want to be, because anywhere you go, you're going to have to deal with insiders and gatekeepers, especially in an established setting. You know, I know that what's his name? Nick Brana is trying to do his own, you know, a movement for a People's Party, and it's not an easy thing to do to bring people under one banner, but I think we can do it. We just need leadership, the right leadership, and people need the right type of platform and space to be able to communicate. Even if you don't agree, we need to be able to have the discourse, and we need to be able to reach people regardless of where they are on the spectrum of you know, knowledge of, you know, what they know.
Well, Chad, I really do appreciate you being on this episode. I really appreciate going through all of these different aspects of the Green Party nomination. I know it's really complicated to kind of delve through it all, but maybe we can have you back at some point in the future. For folks out there who would like to follow you and stay up to date with your campaign, how can they do that?
ChadWilson.us, or you can go to @ChadWilson2020, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And that's pretty much where you can reach me, and I'm engaged with people. So, you know, shoot me a message, tweet some things out, but just realize that if we're going to get rid of corruption in the establishment and what's going on in our government, then we have to be able to do it in our own organization to clear the air and have real integrity in the high ground to say, hey, you know, we're the party of the future. This is what it's supposed to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really do appreciate your time, and hopefully we can have you back at some point in the future.
I'd love it.